What is up, guys? My name is Roman, and I welcome you to my new format of this channel where instead of playing or showing something in the field, I'll just be sitting at a desk and talking about certain aspects of goalkeeping. So, as you have probably realized from today's title, I'll be talking about goalkeeper tryouts today. And to mention right away, I'll be talking about tryouts that are in format via an ID camp, which means that it's a tryout where 50 or 60 players come at once to try out. This is not a private tryout, so we'll be focusing on those. I might make a separate video talking about how to behave and how to stand out in private tryouts, but today this video is solely on those mass tryouts. And I think in hockey it's a very popular tryout as well, where a bunch of players just come in and they have a day to prove themselves. So to give you even an idea, this should probably be a pretty long video because I even took some notes for me to not forget to mention anything, because there is a lot of things to be said. And before I even start saying anything, I wanted to mention this is purely my opinion, because I've been playing goalkeeper for around 9 years now, and I've been to around 50 to 60 tryouts already. So everything that I'm about to say is based solely on my experience and the mistakes that I made and the mistakes that I was able to fix. So I'll be able to tell you how I did that. And without further ado, let's start off from the first aspect, and that is how you should dress on a tryout. And I understand that some of you probably haven't even thought about that before. You just dress the way you wanted to. But this is actually a very important aspect for the tryout, because as we all know, our first impression does a lot for a person, and usually people judge each other based on the first impression. Here, considering that the coach will have around 50 or 60 players to evaluate at this tryout, you want to stand out physically, which means that you want to be dressed the most modern way. Now, what does this mean? Rule number one is to not wear pants. And you're probably wondering, man, goalkeepers always wear pants. But to be honest, this is very old school. Nowadays, pants are really not in style. And yeah, we have a very picky fashion nowadays, but that is how it is. If you want to be fully covered on your legs, just wear leggings and then wear socks and shorts over your leggings. But do not wear pants, because it will look very outdated. You don't want that. Now, the second part of the dress code is not to wear a jersey with another player's name. So do not wear a Ronaldo or Messi jersey. Now, why is this the case? Because when you come to the tryout, your number one job is for the coach to have an impression of you as a professional and experienced goalkeeper. If you come with a Real Madrid or Barcelona jersey, this coach will just see you as a soccer fan. You don't want to be seen as a fan. You want to be seen as a professional, or at least as an experienced person that knows what they're doing, that has been through a lot of training sessions and is able to showcase themselves to the best of their ability. So what jersey should we wear? Most likely, if you play for a team right now, then your team is sponsored by a brand, whether it's Adidas, Nike, Puma, doesn't matter, and they give out new jerseys every year. So right now you most likely have a jersey which you could use, and those types of jerseys are usually long sleeve. On the front it's just the logo with your club's logo, on the back is just a number, and that's the jersey you want to wear. If right now you're not playing for a team, or your team for some reason not providing a jersey for you, then just go on eBay or Amazon, just type in long sleeve goalkeeper jersey, and you can choose out any jersey you want, but please make sure it is something from the last couple of years at least, because do not choose a jersey from 2010. Again, you want to stand out as best as you can, and it might sound a little bit taboo, but honestly, it is what it is. You got to keep up to the modern trends and dress appropriately. And really, the third part about the dress code is your hair, because if you have long hair, You either need to use gel and put it back, pretty much like how I did right now. My hair is going back, it's looking nice. Or if you have very long hair, you could use a hairband. Which, even if you're a man, there's really nothing wrong about using a hairband. People do it all the time. Nobody's gonna think wrong of you. So don't be afraid to buy a hairband if you need it. But again, if you have just short hair, obviously you don't have to worry about this. But it's the same thing as, for example, businessmen. They usually have their hair going back, and the reason for that is that they will look more professional. And here, it's the same thing. You could think of it as the same idea that you want to be looking as professional as possible. And I'm sure that some of you haven't even thought about all those little details before watching this video, but I can assure you that this matters. That everything I have already stated matters with the dress code. So without further ado, let's move on to the second aspect, and that's communication with the head coach. Now, how do you want to go about this? Obviously, when you first come to a tryout, the first thing you're going to do is come up to the head coach, shake their hand, say your name, and a lot of you are probably thinking, well, I kind of want to have a conversation with them, tell them about myself, and I don't want to be mean to you or anything, but most likely a long conversation isn't going to happen right before the tryout. And the reason for it simple is because the coach is getting ready for a tryout with 50 or 60 players. They probably have things to do, and they're not going to be spending many minutes just talking to you. So how do you go about this? You come up to the coach, you shake their hand, you say your name and position. So in my case, I'm going to say, hey coach, my name is Roman, I'm the goalkeeper. I maybe emailed you a couple of days ago. Now, if you are traveling far away, so for example, in my case, if I live in Chicago and I'm traveling to Florida, I might say, hey coach, my name is Roman, I'm the goalkeeper from Chicago. And then from there, the coach might make a follow-up question such as, oh, hey Roman, yeah, I remember talking to you via email. How was the travel? How was the weather? And you might say, hey, I really like the weather in Florida. It's much nicer than Chicago. And after that, most likely the conversation is not going to go further than that. It's not going to last longer than 30 seconds because once again, the coach will probably have things to do. But your number one priority is no matter what you say, no matter if the conversation is 10 seconds long or 2 minutes long, you leave the coach and leave them with a positive vibe, which means that you might probably put a smile on their face and they're thinking highly of you. So for example, with the example I gave, if I were to go try to Florida and say, hey, yeah, traveling was good, I enjoyed my past day here in Florida, weather is much nicer than Chicago, then coach is going to start thinking, oh, okay, this guy likes Florida, this guy is enjoying his time here, and he's going to have a positive mindset about me, which is something that I want to happen because those coaches have a lot of players to watch. And if you, for some reason, have a bad first impression, whether it's with the dress code or with the way you talk, most likely they're going to put it into the back of their heads that, man, I don't want this player. And most of the time, coaches make those types of judgments before they even see you play. This is something you got to realize, that there's a lot of work to be done before you even showcase yourself on the field. And again, when you're talking via email, whatever way you were talking with the coach beforehand on a tryout, you want to make sure you're very nice, that you're using appropriate language, and that you're talking in a very formal way, because I've seen some very bad examples of of players that instead of even saying coach, they just call the coach by their name, which I really didn't see how that's possible, and I knew right away that what they were doing was wrong. And I can assure you that those people haven't went further than that. So again, formal language when communicating with the coach before you even get to the tryout, via phone call or email. And then when you get to the tryout, first thing you want to do is just make sure that the coach remembers you by your face. Okay, so he sees me, he knows my name is Roman, that I play goalkeeper, and that's it for now. After that, I just put on my gloves. I obviously go warm up with the team, with the goalkeepers. Sometimes, or as I should say, most of the time, solid teams, all of them have a goalkeeper coach. So most likely you'll be warming up with all the other goalkeepers. and go from there. Now, third aspect, communication with the players. And right now, what I'm going to mention is probably, again, something you haven't even thought about. But let's say you have a shooting drill, which most likely there's going to be some type of shooting at the tryout. And 4 or 5 shots, you are in goal. And then you got to go stand next to the goal and wait for the other 7 or 8 goalkeepers to go. Now, what do you do there? Most likely, some of you will just stand there and look up into the sky, and that is wrong. I can assure you this is the wrong thing to do, and I will tell you why right now. So, a coach wants a player on their team that is going to provide very positive vibes, and that is an extrovert, and that is very easily communicable with. So what that means is that this player can adapt to any team environment, to any players, and can communicate easily with the players. If you're going to be standing on the side while all the other players are talking within each other, then this coach is not going to see you in the team just because physically at the moment you are not standing with the team or talking with the players. And most likely, especially for introverts, you guys are just going to stand on the side, and especially during the tryout, you're most likely a little bit nervous. You don't want to be talking with people, just focusing on the game, on the training. And most people, they just don't talk with each other. But it is very important to talk to other players while you are doing the tryout. So I take my series of 4 or 5 shots. I leave the goal. I see 3 or 4 defenders standing on the side. I come up to them. I say, hey, guys, what's your name? Where are you from? Maybe what team do you play for? You have a 1 minute or 2 minute conversation, and the coach sees everything, trust me. And most likely there's going to be more than one coach. They will see that you are talking with those players, that you are easily adapting to the team, and they're going to like that, trust me. They are going to like that. It's going to be a very big plus for you. So I can assure you that it is not a big commitment. Most likely just come up, you're going to ask their name, just going to ask, hey guys, what club do you play for? Maybe where you're from. And especially if you're trying out for a professional team or college team, those guys are from all over America. So there's things to talk about. Some people have very interesting stories, so you end up even having a longer conversation than 3 or 4 minutes. So don't be afraid to do that, and that is something you should be doing. It's the same thing with the fellow goalkeepers. Even though those people they're competing with, don't be afraid to come up to a goalkeeper, ask their name. Hey, man, what team do you play for? How many years have you been playing goalkeeper? All of those things. Just have a dialogue with that. He shares his experience, you share your experience. Even the goalkeeper coach is going to see that you have no problem communicating with players. You're adapting very easily to the new environment, the new team. And trust me, those are the types of players coaches want to see at their team, that bring in a positive vibe, and they can do all of those things that I just talked about. So most likely I'm going to come back to the communication part a little bit later, but right now let's actually get to the whole game aspect. Now, there are really only 3 game aspects that you should be showing at a trial and that you should be worrying about demonstrating, and that's distribution, that's claiming crosses, and that's communication with the players on the field. So right now what I'm talking about is saying things like man on, draw back, move up, shift right, shift left, all of those simple phrases that you should constantly be using as a goalkeeper while communicating on the field. So this is different communication. It's not off the field communication like I talked about a minute ago. It's the on-field communication, and it is vital. It is very vital because even in the game, defenders, they do not see everything. And most likely, if you forget to mention something or forget to tell somebody to mark a certain striker, then a lot of times you get scored. I can even tell by myself that when I lacked a little bit of communication, then things weren't going too well. But in this case, in the tryout, it doesn't really matter what you're saying. It just matters that the coach sees you saying something. So again, even if you say shift right, shift left, most likely the players will have done that without you telling that. That is pretty obvious, but your job is just to say it. Now, Your job, again, is to also know the names of the defenders only. So because you want to be able to show the coach and demonstrate to them that, hey, I am very easily adapting to this team, I already know the players' names, and trust me, they notice those things. If you're able to call 2 or 3 players by their name, that is going to be a huge plus to you. And you really, usually there's 4 defenders on each team, and you just got to remember the defenders. At those types of tryouts, they're going to have a jersey over them with a number, so you're just going to associate with a name with the number. If 4 names is too difficult to remember, just try to remember the 2 center backs that are playing for you. So again, let's say the number 13, his name is Jacob. You just associate number 13 with Jacob. That number 5, for example, is Nathan. You associate number 5 with Nathan. Don't try to remember the face, because it's very difficult to remember somebody by their face when you're seeing them the first time. Just remember the name and number, so you'll be able to tell them who to mark. They could, again, be demonstrated to the coach that you could easily communicate on the field, that you're an extrovert, you have no problem getting out of your shell and doing all those things that every goalkeeper is asked to do. And of course, I understand that after about 10 minutes of scrimmage, most likely you're going to be switched to a different team. And again, the process starts over. You got to learn new names, get comfortable with new players, new people. And again, you got to be able to very easily adapt to the new players that you'll be exposed to, because those types of tryouts, 50 players is usually the minimum that arrive. Now, aspect number 5 is communication with the goalkeeper coach. And now this is something that is different from communicating with the head coach, because the head coach, he has a lot of people to think about. Again, there's many people at the tryout, most of them are field players, and he's going to be focused on that. The goalkeeper coach, his job really is just to come out, make a 10 or 15 minute goalkeeper training or even warm up, and then those goalkeepers are going to go play in their scrimmages. So the goalkeeper coach is just going to warm you up, and then he's just going to watch. Your job, obviously, as I mentioned with the head coach, you come up to him, you mention your name, you maybe tell him about a little bit of your playing experience. So in my case, hey, my name is Roman. I was just recently playing at this club, and maybe say one of your achievements. So usually you could very easily connect an achievement to something that he says. So for example, again, with the example that I go to Florida to try out, I say, hey coach, yeah, I'm from Chicago. He might be like, oh yeah, that's nice. I actually used to live in Chicago. I used to coach at this club. And I might say, oh yeah, we actually played against this club a couple of months ago. We beat them. We actually won the tournament. I was able to perform very well, just considered 1 goal out of 4 games, and had a good time. It's actually a real conversation I'm telling you about right now, about a coach I met in Florida, where we just started a conversation that lasted just 2 minutes, but it turned out that this coach used to live in Chicago and actually played against a team that he coached at. So I was able to connect that to his experience, and at the same time I was able to tell him about one of my achievements, because at the end of the day, again, there's going to be 7 or 8 goalkeepers. He's not going to be the only one you're going to worry about. So your number 1 priority when you come to the training session, or rather the tryout, is for the coach to associate you with a name, and maybe realize that you are a serious goalkeeper that has already achieved certain things. They're not just a person up the street that decided to give it a try. Because you don't want to be seen as a person that just decided to give this a try. You want to be seen as a goalkeeper that has been working toward the tryout for many years, and that is ready to contend not even for a spot on the team, but for a starting spot. Because as I usually like to tell all the goalkeepers that I coach, you need to be at least at the same level as the starting goalkeeper on that team. Because making the team, usually there's 5 or 6 goalkeepers that are good enough to even make the team. Usually all those goalkeepers that come out to those college tryouts or those professional tryouts, they have years of experience. None of them are bad. But what really how you stand out from the rest of them is that you gotta demonstrate and showcase a skill set that is much better than the other goalkeepers. So if you have really good distribution, you want to make sure that you're constantly getting the ball, that you're asking the defenders to pass you the ball so you can demonstrate that distribution. If you're really good at diving, then obviously all those diving drills that you do in the warm-up, you gotta be the first one up. Because if you do not stand out, guess what? The coach may not even remember you. He may not remember that you were even there. And unfortunately, there are many instances where people spend their time, money coming out to a tryout, and they lost the tryout before they even started doing anything. So now that we talked about communication with the head coach and the goalkeeper coach beforehand, what happens after the tryout? So let's say you're done playing and you did a pretty good job. Let's just say that you did a pretty good job. Now what do? First thing is come up to the head coach and you gotta say, hey coach, thank you for having me. I had a good time. Most likely, if you did a good job, you could follow up with the question, what did you think about me? Now, there's really two ways that he could answer. The first one, he might say, hey, I really like the way you played. I think you might be a good fit for our team. And in that case, that is very good because then you could follow up with a phrase such as, coach, sounds good. Have you seen my highlight video? Do you need any more highlight videos? And in that case, you might say, hey, no, I'm just going to contact you in a couple of days and we're going to talk about this further on. Now, if you did a pretty poor job, which happens all the time, it's really difficult to do a good job at a trial where there's 50 or 60 players, where you get the bare minimum playing time, and oftentimes you may concede 1 goal out of 3 shots, and that might make or break the tryout. Honestly, it happens all the time. 1 conceded goal can really seal your fate at that specific tryout. And in that case, just say, again, come out with the phrase, hey coach, thank you for having me. And if you think you did a poor job and you have a highlight video where you think you were doing a much better job, you want to make sure that the coach sees that. So again, you say, hey coach, I have a highlight video of me distributing the ball. It's a 10-minute video. And the coach might be, oh hey, yeah, let me see that. Because even based on my experience, I can tell you that there were times where I demonstrated a skill set very poorly. For example, I had 2 passes to make and I messed up both of those 2 passes that I had to make in the game. So I had to make sure I kind of revived myself. How did I do that? I provided the coach with a specific video where I was just passing the ball in games. So I had a video where I was making 1v1 saves, which if you were able to showcase that in a trial, don't worry about that video. I had a specific video about me claiming crosses from corners and free kicks. Again, if you did a good job with that in the trial, don't worry about really showing the video to the coach, but you want to show the video where you maybe messed up in the trial, but you have a video of you doing a good job in that certain aspect. Okay, right now let's pedal back a little bit to the 3 aspects of the game that I started talking about previously. And once again, the 3 aspects of the game that you really have to be worrying about is distribution, is claiming crosses, which means claiming as much corner kicks and as much free kicks crossed into the box as you can, and that is on-field communication. So I'm not talking about the communication that is off the field, but it's really those phrases on the field that you should always be saying, such as man on, shift right, shift left, move up, drop back, and obviously telling the defenders who they should be marking. And again, on corner kicks, this is even more important because when there's a corner next to your goal, most likely all the attention is on you, and the goalkeeper coach and the head coach, they're going to be watching how you're going to organize the defenders. So before the corner kick even happens, before the try even starts, you need to know in your head how many players you want on the post and on which post. So sometimes people want only a player on the front post and nobody in the back post. Sometimes the opposite. Sometimes people, or rather goalkeepers, as we should call them right now, want to play both on the near post and the back post. So this is something you gotta identify for yourself before you even start a tryout, is that where do you want your players to be? Now, whoever is not at a post during a corner kick, they need to be marking. So it's either marking people inside the box, or you should probably have 2 or 3 people on top of the box waiting for the people that are going to run in, because there are some very sneaky players that they run into the box right at the last second when the corner is being crossed, and you got to make sure there are designated players that are ready to defend those people. And it is your job as a goalkeeper to identify those players and to let them know that it's their job to mark those players that are not in the box yet, but they will be running in soon. So again, this is why knowing some names will come in handy, because if you say, hey, Jacob, mark this guy, then it is going to sound much better than you say, hey, number 5, mark number 7. You know, doesn't sound too good. So you got to make sure that you are communicating as clearly as possible and as specifically as possible. So now, 1v1s and far shots. What people need to understand, what all goalkeepers need to understand right now, is that any 1v1 and any shot into the upper 90 that you concede is not your fault. And really, this is not what coaches are going to be looking at when they're going to be pretty much judging you based on your play. Because they're going to be looking for a distribution, how good you are at that. They're going to be looking how well you are at creating crosses. They're going to look at your communication. But if you don't save a 1v1, or if you don't save an upper 90 shot, this is not going to go against you. As long as you do good in those 3 aspects that I previously stated, that does not matter. Because if you consider 1v1 and you react in a poor way when you start getting mad, when you start blaming the defenders, then that is going to go against you. Every 1v1 you concede, as maybe tempting it will be to yell at defenders, make sure you don't yell at anybody at the tryout. You need to have a strong, firm voice, but at the same time, you are not in the stage of blaming anyone. You could do that when you're playing for your team, but not at the tryout. At the tryout, you are just bringing the positive vibes. So if somebody makes something good, does something good, you say, hey, Ben, good step. Hey, Jacob, great cover. All of this positive reinforcement should be constantly provided during the game. If somebody makes a mistake, then you say, hey, Ben, it's okay, next one. And trust me, coaches, they're going to notice how you talk and how you act and how you behave and where your ego is. Because coaches, they want a good goalkeeper, but who they also want is a person that is non-problematic. So if you don't save a 1v1, the coach is really not going to care that much. If you don't save a far shot into the upper 90, really people are just going to pay attention to the striker that shot and say, hey, good shot. But really nobody's going to say, hey, man, you should be saving that. And I can tell you that nobody really does. In your team, the team that you usually play for, this might happen, all that negative reinforcement, but in the tryout, from your part, it should only be positive reinforcement. And you got to understand that 1v1s, you just come out, you do the spread technique, you make the save, good for you. If you do not, there's no problem at all. You just quickly get up, you act like nothing happened at all. Do not have that sad face. Do not give any negative emotion at this tryout at all. It's either you're giving positive reinforcement, or if something bad happens, you're just neutral. Because at the end of the day, if you make a mistake where you think, oh damn man, I messed up, it's gonna make it seem like I meant to do that. And especially if you're a goalkeeper that is not fully developed, if you maybe do not know how to, if you do not know certain aspects of the game, and which happens all the time. I know that I came to tryouts where I didn't know how to pass the ball properly. I didn't feel confident coming out for crosses, but I still made it seem like I'm good at those aspects. And again, it's really about your first impression. It's about how well can you showcase yourself without maybe even doing that certain thing. And really, this is the end of the video. I have a feeling that I might have missed out on something, but we have the comment section for that. So please feel free to go down in the comment section below, comment down what you agree with, what you maybe do not agree with, maybe not showcase, but rather tell your own story, tell people some of your advice that you have. My email will be in the description, so if you want to have a one-on-one conversation about something, then that will be provided for you in the description. But again, as I stated at the beginning of the video, I was making this video purely based on my opinion because I've had 9 years of goalkeeping experience. Right now, I've already had 2 years of goalkeeper coach experience. And really everything that I'm saying is based on things that I learned myself. And it's things that I checked on. So it's not empty words that I was just talking about today. Again, if you like this video, if you want to see more types of those videos, make sure to like it, because again, I need to make sure that I'm getting enough views, I'm getting enough likes, and that people are liking what they're seeing, so I could keep going. And again, it's a new format for me, so if people do not like this format, there's really no point of me doing this. But yeah, if you have an idea for a new video, please feel free to comment down below and I'll make a video about that topic. But other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next video. Goodbye.